Hi, this is Greg Gentry, and welcome to Coffee Talk. I want to talk to you a little bit about, retirement and how you time your retirement. It's very different today. Retirement really isn't an age, it's a number. How much money have you managed to save to be able to retire in a time frame and with a lifestyle that you really want to have? Surprisingly today, I have as many clients retiring younger than 60 as I do over 60, and in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a really huge increase in that. People are slowly learning that they need to save money outside or beyond a retirement or pension plan or a 401k plan. The earlier you start, the earlier you put a plan together, the better retirement, normally earlier retirement, are you going to be able to have. Saving for retirement is just like saving for anything else, in your life, whether it's a TV set or a car, or a house. You figure out what your goal is, you determine how much money you're going to have to do that, and then you figure out the best way to accumulate those funds. Retirement's no different. It just takes a little longer and you have to save a little bit more. But the key is, like our tagline, you have to have a plan. There's lots of things you have to take in consideration. You have to think about, Social Security. What are my benefits going to be? What am I going to do for health care if I retire prior to age 65 and I can't get Medicare? You're going to have those expenses. You consider pensions and 401ks, not just current ones, but maybe employers you had 5, 10, or 15 years ago. You probably have funds stranded in those accounts, and we can show you how to get that money out and get it to work for you. So, there's a lot of things to consider to really figure out what makes the most sense for you. And then you have to decide, am I just interested in enough retirement income to have a good retirement? Or do I want to make sure that I have enough money and I set it up correctly in the way that that money is going to be there for my spouse? Any money that's left over is going to be able to go to my kids and my grandkids. And some other entity or person is not going to be able to absorb it. I want it to pass down through my family. That's a consideration too that a lot of people don't even think about until it's almost too late. So the protection and sheltering can be a big deal as well. Most folks in this area have a 401k plan. And I'll be honest with you, most of the 401k plans we see today aren't great. You know, they had limited options. They have a lot of target date funds, which I'll talk about at a different time. That most of those aren't great ideas for most people, unless you have the perfect market, if there is such a thing. So it's kind of a wonderful thing and a terrible thing all at the same time. A 401k makes you save money. It forces you to save money. The companies reward you a bit by giving you matching dollars, normally 4 or 5%. And then, people will take advantage of that plan. The problem is, who really understands their 401k? Who really understands their investment options? Who really understands when they should move sectors or from different investments, and depending on what the economy is doing, what the marketplace is like? Those are all things that you have to constantly monitor and stay on top of. Most people just don't do that. So you start out in a lot of cases where you don't have great options to begin with, but then nobody's really minding the store. So, they're good and bad all at the same time. So you have to make that decision as you get closer to retirement. Do I stay in that plan? Is it going to continue me on through retirement? Or do I need to do a rollover and get it out into an IRA and really pick and choose where I want the money to be to have stronger growth? Those are things you have to plan now. You can't plan after your retirement because you're going to cost yourself retirement dollars. So, you know, again, the good and the bad. You can have too much money in pre-tax accounts, and everybody thinks that's a great thing. And for some people, it works out, just fine. But a pre-tax account is an account like a 401k or a 403b, where your employer will take money from your pay and put directly in the plan without charging you current taxes. So the money accumulates pre-tax until you actually retire and start to pull the money out. So, the way I look at it today, I kind of look at it as if you're creating a tax time bomb. Instead of paying taxes now at probably a lower rate, you're taking a chance here to see what the rates are going to be when you retire. My money is not really on taxes coming down over the balance of your lifetime. So if you stop and think, if you've been working for 20 years and you've been putting money in a pre-tax account for 20 years, You've decided not to pay taxes on money when you were probably in a lower tax bracket until defer it to a point in time when you're in a pretty high tax bracket. So you've created this huge amount of money that's not really there, because you haven't paid taxes on it yet. So you retire and you find that most of your assets are pre-tax dollars. What's that mean? Now, well, that means your monthly income is 100% taxable. You take money out to buy a new car, it's 100% taxable. You need a new hot water tank, you pull it out, it's 100% taxable. You want to take your spouse on a great vacation or cruise, it's 100% taxable. The kids need money, their grandkids need money, a loan of money, you pull money out of your 401k, and it's taxable. So every time you turn around, you're paying taxes on the money. Not just what you're taking to live on, everything you pull out. So you find yourself sometimes surprisingly in a lot higher tax bracket in retirement than you thought you would be in. So, it pays to have an after-tax account to help supplement your retirement account. So, I tell folks, if you're working and your employer says, I'm going to match 4 or 5% of what you put in your 401k, don't put 15% in. I see it all the time. Don't put 15% in. Don't put 20% in. Put in what the match will match you, because you can't beat free money, right? But instead of plowing more money in a pre-tax account, why don't you put it in a Roth account? Pay some of the tax liability currently when you know what the tax rate is, and let that money grow. And in a Roth, it will grow tax-free. So when you retire, you can take your income out of your pre-tax account. But if you've had a Roth or a side account, that's the money that you use for the hot water heater and the vacation and the down payment on a new car and to help out the kids and grandkids, and it doesn't destroy your tax situation. You have to do some very simple planning like this to make sure that you stay retired, and in 6 months from now, you're not back, working someplace because you're having a hard time paying your bills. There's a lot to consider here. Um, so a lot of folks say, well, I'm not so worried about that because I am a big saver. I've saved a lot of money for retirement. I can just go whenever I want to. Well, the issue is, going back to the time bomb, I have clients that come in and they have done a wonderful job saving money. We roll the money into an IRA and they start taking retirement income. But the crazy thing is, after saving money all your life, a lot of people say, I really don't want to take any more than I have to because I don't want to pay the taxes on it. So, when RMD, required minimum distribution time, rolls around and they've got to take a forced withdrawal from the account, they're very upset they have to do that to pay taxes on it. Well, let's carry that out a little bit farther. So let's say your IRA account is earning more money than you're withdrawing, which it certainly should be, right? That means that your IRA account's actually growing every year, even though you're taking withdrawals. So what happens when you die? So when you pass away, if you're married, your spouse can inherit that IRA account. The IRS will allow that spouse to treat that IRA like it was just his or hers from the beginning. And they still have to continue to take the RMDs, but that growth will still continue within that account. So what happens when the second spouse passes away? That's when you have created a problem for your family, more than likely. If your kids have been responsible and they've saved money of their own, and they have their own savings, their own retirement plans, they're now going to inherit your retirement savings. And the IRS says in our current tax code, they have 10 years to withdraw all those funds. So let's think about that. You've deferred the tax liability. Your kids are trying to retire. They inherit your money, and inheriting normally is never a problem, right? But the tax can be a concern. So now that your kids are retiring and they have to take their own retirement money out and pay taxes on their own retirement money, they have to take yours out too, over a 10-year period of time. So you're creating a tax time bomb in a lot of circumstances, and you're not really even aware you're doing it. Not for you, but you pass on tax liability onto your family. So, there are conversions with your IRA that you can take. You can do Roth conversions and some simple things to again pay some taxes now that would be a lower rate than what your kids would have to pay if they inherited. So, retirement is just not saying, whip, 65, I'm out of here. It's really not that simple. Not if you want to do it right, not if you want to pass assets on, Um, So there's a lot of things to consider. And that's really why you have to have a plan. So, our job is to show you how to increase your income, reduce your tax liability, and make sure you really have enough money to retire on, the way you want to retire. And we do it really well. We've done it for a long time. We're going to do it for a lot longer time too. So, if you're thinking about retirement, or you should be thinking about retirement, give us a call. We're happy to sit down and help you put a plan together.